For nearly 1 million years, human evolution was completely stuck. If you could travel back in time and walk through the sweeping, dangerous plains of East Africa 2 million years ago, you would find our early ancestors living a life that feels completely alien to us. This was the era of Homo habilis. They were small, fragile creatures surviving in a world ruled by massive predators. To survive, they used the absolute oldest technology ever discovered on Earth. Scientists call them Oldowan tools. But if you actually looked at one of these tools, you would realize that calling it a tool is incredibly generous. They were nothing more than broken rocks. To make an Oldowan tool, a primitive human ancestor would simply pick up a river cobblestone, smash it violently against another heavy rock, and look at the ground. They would pick up the sharp, accidental flakes that broke off during the impact. There was no long-term plan. There was no blueprint. There was no future thinking involved. If a tribe came across the carcass of a dead animal and needed to cut the meat away from the bone, they would smash rocks together until something sharp appeared. Use that random edge once and instantly throw it away into the dirt. For 800,000 years, across thousands of forgotten generations, this exact behavior never changed. Imagine the sheer scale of that time. Generation after generation, parents passed down the exact same primitive habit to their children without adding a single new idea. Early humans were completely trapped in a psychological loop of basic, immediate survival. Their brains were small, their technology was completely random, and their minds could only react to what was happening directly in front of their eyes. They lived entirely in the present moment, unable to imagine a better tomorrow or a better tool. But then, around 1.76 million years ago, the planet changed, and a brand new species stepped onto the stage of history. This was Homo erectus. They were taller, stood completely upright, and possessed a burning curiosity that their ancestors never had. And they did something that had never occurred in the entire history of life on Earth. A Homo erectus individual picked up a raw, rough block of volcanic rock, but instead of just smashing it blindly to see what would break, they did something revolutionary. They sat down, looked at the rough stone, and saw a hidden shape trapped inside it. They picked up a second stone, or a piece of heavy antler, and began to strike the rock with calculated, deliberate precision. They did not just want a random, sharp edge. They were following a specific, invisible design inside their own mind. They chipped away at one side, flipped the stone over, and chipped away at the other, working for hours until they had created a perfect, symmetrical, teardrop-shaped masterpiece. This was the Acheulean handaxe. It was the world's very first true machine. It was a tool that did not exist anywhere in nature, and the exact moment that first handaxe was carved, it permanently altered the biological architecture of the human mind, setting off a chain reaction that would eventually build the modern world. To truly understand why a simple piece of shaped stone is so radical, you have to look at the massive shift in psychology required to build it. When a modern chimpanzee uses a twig to fish for termites out of a mound, it is using a tool, but it is using an object that already exists in nature. The ape did not change the core structure of the twig. When our earliest ancestors smashed Oldowan rocks, they were letting the chaotic physics of a blind impact decide the shape of the blade. They had no control over the outcome. The Acheulean handaxe changed everything because it introduced the concept of bifacial reduction. This is a scientific term for a beautiful process. It means the toolmaker had to chip away at both sides of a rough stone until the two sides met perfectly in the middle, creating a thin, razor-sharp, balanced cutting edge. This means that before the toolmaker ever struck the rock a single time, the exact geometry of the handaxe already existed inside their imagination. They had to visualize an object that did not exist yet, hold that complex mental image in their working memory for hours at a time, and execute hundreds of highly precise physical strikes to bring that invisible image out into the physical world. The physical stakes of this process were incredibly high. If the toolmaker struck the rock just a fraction of an inch too hard, or at the slightly wrong angle, the entire stone would instantly shatter into useless pieces, completely ruining hours of exhausting, dangerous labor. The level of focus, hand-eye coordination, and structural judgment required was absolute. Archaeologists digging into the earth today have found hundreds of thousands of these teardrop handaxes littered across Africa, the Middle East, Europe, and Asia. But when you look at these artifacts, a terrifying mystery emerges. A handaxe dug up from the deserts of Saudi Arabia looks nearly identical to one found in the deep mud of England, and almost completely identical to one found in the valleys of China. Even more shocking, they stayed exactly the same for over 1 million years. This was not a series of random accidents. This was the world's first advanced, standardized manufacturing system. It was a physical design manual passed down through thousands of miles and hundreds of thousands of years. It was definitive proof that our human ancestors had unlocked a massive cognitive upgrade. They had conquered the future. They had mastered foresight. For decades, modern scientists faced a massive roadblock. They could easily find these ancient stone tools preserved in the dirt, but the actual brains of the prehistoric humans who made them had rotted away millions of years ago. For a long time, researchers could only guess how these tools changed our ancestors' biology. They couldn't prove it. That was until a groundbreaking new field of science emerged called neuroarchaeology. Researchers at top universities decided to put this ancient evolutionary mystery to the test using modern technology. They recruited human volunteers, strapped high-tech, real-time brain scanning equipment to their heads, and taught them the difficult ancient art of prehistoric flint knapping. They watched the volunteers' brains in real time as they tried to manufacture both the primitive, random Oldowan flakes and the advanced, symmetrical Acheulean handaxes. What the live brain scans revealed completely shocked the scientific community and rewritten our understanding of human history. When the volunteers were making the primitive Oldowan flakes, their brains showed very basic, localized activity. The scan only lit up in the areas responsible for basic vision and simple motor control. It was the exact same instinctual brain activity a modern human uses when they peel a fruit, slice a vegetable, or throw a ball. It required almost no higher-level thinking. But the exact moment the volunteers attempted to carve the advanced, symmetrical Acheulean handaxe, the entire brain monitor lit up like a massive fireworks show. The process demanded an incredible amount of cognitive energy. The scan showed massive activation in the prefrontal cortex, which is the brain's ultimate executive control center. It triggered intense visual working memory deep within the brain, alongside complex action planning networks. When the scientists carefully analyzed the data, they discovered something incredibly beautiful. The highly specific, complex neural network that is activated when a human tries to carve a Stone Age handaxe is the exact same neural network used by a highly trained professional musician playing a complex masterpiece on a piano. Making a prehistoric handaxe has more evolutionary ties to complex art and engineering than to basic survival instincts. It was a high-wire act of real-time physics, structural judgment, and absolute physical mastery. This incredible discovery finally unlocked the secret of what scientists call the biocultural feedback loop. The tool did not just serve the human hand. The tool actively manufactured the modern human mind. When Homo erectus forced themselves to slow down, sit in the dirt, and build these precise stone axes, they accidentally created a massive, brutal evolutionary pressure. In the harsh environments of the prehistoric world, an individual with a weak working memory or poor motor control simply could not make the tool. If they couldn't make the tool, they couldn't efficiently butcher meat, they couldn't access life-saving bone marrow, and they couldn't survive the brutal winters. But the individuals whose brains were plastic enough to adapt, learn, and master this complex tool-making process became the absolute apex predators of the planet. The differences between these two eras of the human mind are staggering. The ancient Oldowan brain reacted only to immediate, present needs. It operated with low prefrontal cortex activation and relied on simple, instinctual muscle memory. Because of this limitation, human brain size remained completely stagnant for nearly 1 million years. But the Acheulean brain changed the game entirely. It allowed our ancestors to plan hours, days, and even months ahead. The physical act of carving forced the brain to stimulate heavy frontoparietal white matter pathways, which are the biological cables that connect different parts of our mind. Because of this intense mental workout, human brain size nearly doubled over this period of history. Recent neurological studies have confirmed that the intense physical act of learning a highly technical physical skill causes the human brain to physically alter its own structure, growing new, thick pathways of white matter. And this specific structural rewiring had a massive, completely unintended side effect that changed the course of our species forever. The exact same frontoparietal white matter pathways that allowed our prehistoric ancestors to sequence the physical steps required to carve a stone axe, strike one here, flip the stone, strike twice there, are the exact same biological pathways that modern humans use to structure complex sentences, speak advanced languages, and solve intricate mathematical equations. The mental engine required to say subject, verb, object is the exact same mental engine required to shape a piece of flint. By pushing the boundaries of physical stone technology to survive, our ancient ancestors accidentally built the structural biological hardware required for human speech, abstract thought, philosophy, and the birth of civilization itself. Our modern obsession with technology, our total dependency on smartphones, our creation of hyper-advanced supercomputers, our dreams of launching rockets to Mars, is not a new trend. It is the direct continuation of a deep biological program that started nearly 2 million years ago in the dirt of East Africa. We often make the mistake of thinking that technology is something separate from the human race. We look at our digital screens and think we are consuming something external to our biology. But deep time history proves that humans are a profoundly symbiotic species. We do not just use tools. We are fundamentally defined, shaped, and engineered by them. The Acheulean handaxe was so incredibly successful that it remained the dominant technology on the surface of the Earth for over 1 million years. That makes it, by far, the most successful, long-lasting invention in the entire history of the human race. It outlasted every empire that would ever be built, survived multiple cataclysmic ice ages, and traveled across massive continents. Our primitive ancestors did not survive the ancient world because they possessed sharp claws, massive muscles, or thick protective fur. They survived because their minds cracked open a new superpower. They figured out how to take the abstract, invisible ideas inside their imagination and project them out into the physical world using their hands. When you pick up a smartphone today, you are not looking at a modern anomaly. You're looking at the direct, uninterrupted descendant of that original, teardrop-shaped piece of volcanic rock. It is a high-tech mirror of our evolutionary journey. And just like that original stone axe, the complex digital tools we are building today are quietly, systematically rewiring the brains of the next generation of humanity, changing what it means to be human all over again.